What is up? Season 2, Public Allies Alum Live. It's happening. It's happening, people. This is Tony Molina. Throwing some the Dissed and Dismissed. If you like rock music, go check it out. 11 songs in 12 minutes or something like that. Just all killer. No filler. I'd like to think that's what PALM Live is well. No, all killer, no filler. Welcome back, everybody. The hiatus is over. We got picked up for a second season of hashtag PALM Live. It's our weekly web video Google Hangout where every Wednesday at noon Central we catch up with a different alum from across our network who's doing amazing stuff, as well as give you the latest skinny that we're trying to do at across the country alum. So some exciting stuff happening. So glad you've joined us from the hiatus. We hope that we can build on our viewership from the previous year. I'm not saying we had orange as the new black kind of numbers, but it'd be nice. It'd be nice to get that kind of number. Let's get a Netflix deal. All right. Anyways, I'm Mac Antigua, your Director of Alumni Engagement here at Public Allies. Since we've last connected, we've done some really cool stuff around the network. You might have seen our exciting alumni summit. Black Male Achievement Summit. That's a new circle of alum we're organizing across the country to see how we can best realign the assets of Public Allies to increase the outcomes for black males and improve black male achievement in the country. So we had our first event in DC. We brought together 30 of our alum and staff and current allies, African American men, to talk about that. So that's what we did since we last talked. That's pretty cool. And we're actually bringing next week Akundayo Igaleke, Cincinnati alum, to talk about that. So that's a little bit of a plug. Next Wednesday at this time. But let's not fast forward too much because this is our first episode of the second season. I'm so excited you're joining us. And before we get to it, I want to put out, just let you know, we put some stuff on Twitter, as we usually do on the game day of Public Allies Alum Live. We put out our check-in question of the day. If you were a Public Allies alum, right, you might remember this. You were in a room with other allies, sitting in a circle, and everybody had to check in and share what was going on. So we do that every Wednesday as part of this experience. So today's check-in question was, what is something you started that you're proud of? So I want to do a quick shout-out to those who did respond. Kim Loper, she's a Milwaukee alum. She shared that the coolest project was an entrepreneurial workshop for artists with her team service project at a hip-hop nonprofit, True School. Up on the check-in today. Let's see, we've got a couple others I want to shout out as well. Yes, our old friend, our old fellow alum, Chiffon Taylor in the Delaware, talks about her new project, the Truth Tellers Project. Something she's proud of that she just started. And if you were paying attention back in the day, she raised over $2,000 through our PALM crowd-raising challenge for that initiative, and that's about telling the stories of the people who don't get their stories told in her neighborhood. So great to hear that that's continuing to happen. So thanks, Chiffon, for telling us that one. I think we got time for one. We might have time for one more. Hopefully I pulled out one more. No, I didn't. Never mind. I don't have time for one more. But what I do have time for is let me bring up real quick my guy. Some say my co-host. We did see in the surveys, you guys loved him. Raul, he's here.
Hey.
Raul, what's up, my man?
How you doing, Mac?
You're only 10 feet away. You're only 10 feet away.
I can throw something at you.
I'm throw something. Raul, great to have you on the telecast. Real quick, you are Director of Marketing Communications here at the National Office. You'll also be checking later. Watch Raul. I'll be watching Twitter. So if you got any questions for Katrina, hashtag PALM Live, you'll pull them. But real quick, Raul, you answer this question. What is something you're proud of that you started or helped co-create? Name something.
That's a good question. Being that the World Cup starts tomorrow, I wanted to kind of bring in a soccer reference. And I play soccer pretty much informally and formally, but informally at a local park in the south side of Milwaukee. And I play with a whole motley crew of people who show up, young people, teenagers, 20-somethings. And it's really interesting how just to get organized for a game is sometimes a really big challenge. So one of the things, I wouldn't say tradition, but one of my influences on that field and for that group of people is to help get the game started and to select captains and to really, I always tell the kids, it's not just about, using your bodies, it's about using your minds as coaches to be able to select the right players. So now, there's a tradition now of like how games get started is, people kind of on their own organize themselves. And I think that's kind of a subtle influence that I've had as being the old guy, the old guy on the field.
Awesome. Raul, thanks for sharing your story as well as theming it with World Cup, something I'm excited about. And Raul, I'm going to hold on to that awesome story about organizing to offset the hate that I have for FIFA as an
Yes.
organization. So let's do our best to have cognitive dissonance and celebration that we love the soccer but hate FIFA. Either way, thanks, Raul, for checking in. We're going to have you off a little bit in the green room, and we'll bring you back halfway through.
Cool.
When we have our guest. And so I want to bring Mac, I'll kill it, no filler. Let's get to the good stuff. You've been hyping this guest up. I'm excited to have this person. When I say back, I had the opportunity to work with our guest back in 2001 when she was an ally at Public Ally Chicago, and I was on staff at Public Ally Chicago. And this person was recommended to me by one of her fellow alum, Lily Sellers, who's an alum out there, emailed me. He's like, Mac, you need to put her on the show. And that's how I operate. You give me leads. You email me at MacArthurRay@publicallies.org, and we'll put them on the show. That's the kind of outfit we're running here. I don't need Tom Cruise from Edge of Tomorrow. I don't need to talk to him. I want to talk to you. Alum. So Lily Sellers said, you got to talk to Katrina because she's doing some amazing stuff. And so I'm like, whoa, what a great to call up Katrina. So she did. And I'm excited to have class of 2002 Public Ally Chicago, Katrina Pavlik is with us. Katrina, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
All right, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Where is here for you right now? Where's here?
I'm on the south side of Chicago in the neighborhood of Beverly.
Beverly. I grew up at 111th and Roberts Road, which is a little bit of a collar suburb right outside of Beverly. When you say Beverly, I think of like, was that like, is it Queen of Peace? I don't know, I'm trying to think of the schools like in that area, like a lot of schools in that area.
In this area, we define ourselves by parish. That's how old school we are.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Welcome back. Yes, and we in the pregame, we talked about how we did a switcheroo because you grew up in Glendale, Wisconsin, which is adjacent to Shorewood. I grew up in Palos, which is adjacent to Beverly. So I feel like there should be some sort of coin established to commemorate this cosmic connection. That's how.
Well, there has to be a balance in the system, right?
Awesome. Katrina, thanks so much for joining us. You are summoned to here. You are summoned. A fellow alum summoned you into this meeting because we need to know your story. But let's do a little X-Men origin story. Class of 2002. What were you doing as the class of 2002 in Chicago?
I was a young, idealistic 20-something, and I was working at a parent program through Imagine Chicago. And then my team service project was in Uptown. We were trying to get a dialogue about the changing demographics of Uptown.
Which since then has changed severely, right? Like in terms of the demographics, right?
I was there last week, and I didn't even recognize the place. It was completely different.
There's a lot more anthropology stores, I think.
Yes.
So that being said, you got at Imagine Chicago, which was one of our partner orgs back in the day. Bliss Brown, I believe, is who you got to work with. Amazing asset-based community development practitioner and leader.
Yes.
And my Bliss Brown story is that she gave me probably the best advice on being married ever. And her advice was, the couple that learns together stays together. That was her thing. And I'm like, I got a lot of advice that year. That still sticks with me. Like that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's good stuff. Well, I do have to say that Public Allies also gave me my marriage. So that, like,
I love it.
That's a nice.
Drop that. Give me a little of that. Give me where that. Give me, because that's juicy. People want to hear that. What happened there?
I think it was our first week of training in September, and this tall, dark, handsome dude came in and did a training about one-on-one interviews, and and his name was Jeff Penzino, and I ended up marrying him.
Okay, so results may vary. We don't promise that every ally gets married to a trainer. Let's be clear. You are an outlier.
I am an outlier. I understand that.
And so this is so self-indulgent, but I want to reference. I've known Jeff Benzino since high school because we both did alcohol, tobacco, drug prevention stuff. Like that was our leadership. So I remember Jeff as this guy who played the guitar, big goofy guy who would lead like group camp songs and stuff. So it was crazy to reunite with him in that setting, and then seeing you guys married is like, oh, two of the coolest people I know got married. That's like, you guys are like a power couple of like local cool social justice action. So I was always happy when I heard that. So Jeff Benzino, we've name checked Jeff, which is great. These are key things we need to do in this interview. Now, since you didn't stay at Imagine Chicago, can you just give me a brief sort of the dash between then and now?
I took my kind of passion for urban school education and took that to communities and schools of Chicago. And then got my master's in education, taught in Chicago public schools, and then I was home with babies for about 5 years before I kind of re-entered the workforce.
Wow. So how much when you did IDPs, your individual development plans with your program, who was your program? Was it Sonia?
Yeah.
How much of that IDP was outlined in that story you just told me, or was that totally like not what you had planned? Like
Zero of that. I was going to be the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, and now I know that that's not going to happen for good reason.
Why won't that happen? I'm curious. Why won't that happen?
I like where I'm at.
Well, let's talk about where you're at. That's a great segue. Awesome segue, Katrina, because you get paid working for community and schools, but one of the big reason why Lily brought you to my attention is because you've helped develop, I would say, a movement in Chicago around this. And so I would love to hear about this because our public allies checking question is, what is something that you're proud of that you started or helped start? I got to think this fits. This is your way of answering this question. So tell us about this initiative, endeavor, movement, etc.
Yeah. So when I was home with those kids, I live on the South Side. The South Side is notorious for being bereft of resources in certain ways, right? Particularly for new moms. And I was really struggling with breastfeeding. I was struggling being a new mom and finding a community that I could connect to. And it took about 5 years for me to kind of put the pieces together of, okay, I'm passionate about education, and parenting has a lot to do with education. I'm passionate about women's issues. I'm passionate about public health. And here's this great thing that brings all of those together, this piece of breastfeeding and supporting moms in breastfeeding and helping them advocate for themselves. And that really was what started Breastfeed Chicago. So we're not a replacement for what's already going on. So a lot of people are familiar with like La Leche League or Breastfeeding USA. We're not replacing them. I think what Public Allies taught me was figure out what's there already and amplify that. And I think that's what we've done with Breastfeed Chicago. We have created a network of resources, a clearinghouse of information, so that when a mom says, I want to breastfeed, but my family's not supporting me, my doctor's not supporting me, whoever else, I need information, I need evidence-based information, we're there as that kind of holder for them to make it easier on them.
I'm about to show on the big screen here the website breastfeedchicago.wordpress.com, and that's one of the ways that you guys are sharing these resources. Am I correct? You've got resources up here, so breastfeedchicago.wordpress.com, and it's a way for not only stories to be shared, but also for people to get access to those resources. And you also have a Facebook page. Tell me about the Facebook group. How's that blowing up?
Well, we have a group. We have a Facebook group of about 6,600 moms, which is kind of, it's still a drop in the bucket in terms of moms in Chicago, but it's a pretty good start, I think. And what's nice about that is it's all about mom-to-mom support, using mom's own experiences to help each other out.
Wow. Yeah. You're pretty modest. I think there's a lot of people that would kill to have 6,600 people in their group. And it's not, and again, this is not a passive group of people. These are people that are also driven to find connection. These are people that want to share. So you might think 6,600 people is small, but I got to imagine it's a very dynamic group of people that are trying to create a culture, I believe, around breastfeeding in Chicago. Is that fair? Or
exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of our overarching goal is, you know, breastfeeding is not about good parenting or bad parenting. It's about self-efficacy. It's about child development and mother-to-child bonds. It's about public health. So getting people together that are passionate about that, I think we've found that's just kind of turning into a snowball effect, and we are changing the way that doctors work with their patients. We are working to change the way that hospitals work with their customers. But most of all, we're changing the way that moms talk with each other about motherhood. I think that's kind of that cultural shift is really, you know, the West Coast and the East Coast, they've got breastfeeding figured out in a lot of ways that here in Chicago we just don't have it.
Wow. Yeah. You know, I'm going to bring Raul on to ask a question, but I want to throw this because hopefully I'll steal this question because he always has these great questions. So I know I'm on the right track. If I beat this question. So here's my question. You had an idea that this needed to happen. You saw an opportunity. And now you've been able to help manifest or actualize or co-manifest. Can you speak a little bit to what might have been the barriers? Because there's a ton of people out there who have great ideas or great notions of opportunity. Could you speak a little bit to the barriers that you identified and were able to manage and perhaps overcome to get to this point? Right? Because I think people would look at what you're doing. It's like, that is tremendous. But I'm not going to just say, oh, you know what? Because breastfeeding itself is so magical and so important. It created this up. There was zero before. You know what I'm saying? Like, there wasn't anything. And I think you could say that about a lot of things that need to be changed. So can you speak to sort of how you navigated that? Because it didn't happen on its own.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that we, as a board, you know, realized was there's already people in the city doing work around this, right? We are riding this beautiful wave of breastfeeding kind of change. But from our perspective, there was still a lot of feeling of like, well, this is what we do, this is our territory. And I think what we managed to do is we managed to reach out to other organizations that were doing similar work and say, let's work together here. Let's leverage what you have and what we have. You know, we've got the moms, you've got the professionals. Let's bring them together. So I think that getting over those feelings of like, well, we don't really know who you are and we don't know what you're wanting to do. That's not what this is about. This is about helping moms. So I think once we got over that hump, you know, now we're being recognized as, okay, we're sending moms to Breastfeed Chicago because we know that they're going to get good support. So I think that territory thing was a problem.
That's what I wanted. There you go. Because you know the nonprofit sector, and you know, and Chicago. You know, Chicago's a territory kind of town. Like it's a town. But like we talk Southwest side, South side, North side, West side. And I know Raul's in the bullpen. He's just like, I got my question, but I want to follow up with this real quick. It sounded like that you all had a cachet, which was these relationships, these peer-to-peer relationships, and this trust. And you were brokering this with when I say providers, information.
Right.
And so by proving to be a good broker, if you will, you connected to good providers of information, of resources, and became this virtuous loop. In turn, they gained trust in you all to be this broker. And it sounds like it's just a really important part of this work is where is the trust? Where are the fair brokers, if you will? And that's what Breastfeed Chicago plays that role as a fair broker. And amidst turf, I mean, that's the reality. Turf competing for resources, the human side, you know, Am I tracking correctly, or am I making up stuff?
No, that's absolutely right. And I think, you know, to bring it back to Public Allies, I think one thing that the Team Service Project told me was, you got to show up, right? So we started going to meetings. We went to the meetings, we called people, we emailed them, we reached out, we said, we're not looking to take away what you've already got going. We're really here to build upon it, and eventually we got that trust. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I mean, this is still Chicago, but but we're working on it. We're working on it.
Awesome, awesome. Now I finally, with a long way to be out of breath, Raul, you better have a good one. I'm bringing my guy, Raul. You might not know Raul, but Raul is a journalist by trade. He still is a journalist. He tells stories.
I'm scared.
Questions. Raul, baby, what you got? Come on, you're my guy on the pen. Take your microphone on. Get off mute, brother. Get off mute. Give me something, Raul. Give me something. All right, you're still on mute. Raul, come on. This is season 2.
Okay, it's off. It's off. It's off. Right? All right. Katrina, thanks for joining us on the call. And, kind of building off of this, I'm really fascinated. First of all, I'm excited that you took this tact of not having to reinvent the wheel, that there's already these groups and there's already these people that are working on these issues and that care about these issues. But I'm very, very curious, how did you get the moms? I mean, I think anybody who's on social media, even just a little bit, you run into groups and initiatives that are very, very successful, and then you run into other ones that are extremely unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely curious, what was your tactic to actually get 6,600 moms on a Facebook group? Because, of course, once you have those moms, it makes your job easier going to other groups and saying, hey, I have an audience. I have people who are plugged in, who are interested in this. Let's partner. I don't want to, erase you from the map. I want to work with you. But if you don't have those moms, it might be a much harder, a much tougher sell. So I'm very curious on your tactic.
Yeah, it was a combination of dumb luck and some strategy. So we started off. We started off with probably 10 moms, and they all added all of their mom friends, right? So because moms have amazing networks. That's just what they do. Like Mac was saying, they search for connection. They need connection. When you're home with young kids, you need somebody to talk to. So that started the balloon. And then I think what we did a little bit more strategically was we said we are about, there are plenty of groups on the web that are about just venting. Let's just vent, and then we'll all tell each other how horrible our husbands are, how horrible our mother-in-law is, right? We were really interested in giving moms evidence-based information, linking them to something they need. So we got board members and we got volunteers who have training in breastfeeding, and they're the moderators of the group, and they are interested in making sure that quality information is getting out to moms. There are a lot of really terrible myths and a lot of terrible practices that even doctors are still adhering to. So we're going to make sure they're linked to the right information at the right time. And so when a mom goes on to Breastfeed Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning and she has a problem, she gets an answer within 2 minutes. And I think that's what keeps moms coming back. They know that they can trust this space. They know there's not going to be any drama. If there's drama, we cut it out, and we make sure that we have something that they need.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And Matt, can I get one more quick question?
Yeah, of course.
So what's of the Katrina, of the values that Public Allies espoused, what was one that was really important for you, either diversity, inclusion, continuous learning, etc.? What touched you and why?
Well, I think that asset-based community development has been, ever since I left Public Allies, that has been my framework for thinking about issues, right? Whenever I think about an issue, I first think assets. So that was a huge piece of what I learned. And I think the other thing was that that importance of listening to other people's stories and understanding that my experience is not the only experience, that a lot of people have a lot of other experiences. So one thing that we know is that women of color in Chicago in particular have very low breastfeeding rates. I don't have the answers to that problem. I think without my experience of Public Allies, I would say, well, it's got to be this, this, and this. And I think that what I learned was, you need to use the community that you're working with for those answers, because they have the answers. I can be a tool for getting those answers out to a larger audience.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much. PA all day.
What is there anything on the Twitter lines that you saw that you liked? We've seen a couple more PLM live tweets, or just other thoughts before we let you go. We let you go back into the hovel. That is your office.
Let's see. Well, we had a couple of other people. We have. You know what? I'm just gonna invite people to go to our Twitter account and go to our hashtag #PAAlumLive, because there's been some good. There's some more people on there, but I'd have to fumble through it right now, Mac. But yeah, there's more people that are jumping in.
We are like a pit crew. We run the show remote. We are a NASCAR pit crew the way we do this. All right, so thanks. We'll do it better next week. But thanks for chiming in. Stay crispy on your end. And as we tie up, Katrina, what I love sort of hearing in your story, and I'm not surprised because you modeled it as an ally and you continue to model it today, is this sort of this appreciation for the content. And I think that's one of the. I would love to sort of hear your insight of continuing to be a change maker. Like you said you were an idealistic young 20-something, but yet, right, you still want to continue to be someone who can move, continue to change the world. From a Public Allies perspective, our vision of a just and equitable society for all, right? That's part of our vision. And I would just love to know, what keeps you in the game? What keeps you grounded? What keeps you motivated in continuing to play that role as someone who leads in this way?
Oh, insanity? No. I think it's a real visceral sense of when I see, particularly a new mom being mistreated by the people around her. That just hurts me to the core. Because that mother-child relationship is so important for that whole child's life. So if we're true educators, if we're true social justice warriors, we need to think of that relationship as the very beginning of peace, of justice in the world, right? So I think that feeling, gut feeling in the core of my body is what keeps me moving. I'm like, okay, this work isn't done yet. We got to keep going.
Awesome. And learning from her story reminds me again for what we're hoping to do with Public Allies alone. We have 5,000 people around this country. We're going to add another 650 this year to these folk like you who have gone through this experience, right? And what I'm inspired in your story is trying to understand what are those touch points, what are those affinities, so that to connect these alum together, they're going to take off, because they're already doing it, and so it's hearing your example, and maybe you have the advantage in some ways because of Chicago co-location, right? There's a defined geographic sort of spot and people I identify with, and maybe that's a challenge at a national level. But hearing your story just sort of reminds me, whenever I get down in this work, it's like, no, they can do it. You can keep doing it. Keep finding connections. Keep listening, and keep looking for the patterns. And I just sort of hope maybe folks who are watching this, right, if they're interested in the work that you're doing and maybe their neighborhood or area doesn't have this, I hope that they can call on you to go like, well, what do you do? I'd love to learn more about
Absolutely.
This. Fire. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Katrina, thanks so much for being with us today as we wrap up this episode of season 1, season 2 coming back for Public Allies Live. I want everyone to know we're still going to do this again next week, and keep checking out all day. We'll be tweeting out PA Alum Live. We want to know what you're excited about. We want to know what you're proud of that you helped start. And again, if you're out there and you're like, Mac, I want to see this person's story, tell me, email me at MacArthurRay@publicallies.org. We'll put him or her on the show. Until then, we'll see you next week, 12 Central, 1 Eastern. In the meantime, this was live. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.